everybody. It's Brandy. Welcome back to Hella Friends, the podcast rooted in love, raw conversations, and real talk.
And I am Kayla. And today we are joined by a friend of the pod. And I'll let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
Hello, Kristen.
Kristen is actually a photographer, and she takes our pictures for us as well. And so at the end of the discussion, I'll let her talk about her business a little bit.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk about something that hits really personal for our little podcast. As we know, there has been issues probably since like the 70s is when it kind of first started jumping off, then moved in through the 80s, the 90s. And sadly, even as we sit here 2025, it's literally still happening. It's insane. But with that being said, I know that, you have a book that has won awards and, tells your story that, has that personal connection to this. And so in honor of your book, we would like to talk about that today. So,
Aww.
Brandy.
Okay, so yes, I wrote a book. My book is entitled Wrongful. It is 1 year old this week. Yay, it's 1 year old, 1 year old. It has won an independent author award. It was just placed into... First, it was placed into the Texas library space, which is hard to do for independent authors. And now it's been placed in the national library space. So you can request Wrongful in all 50 states.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's literally incredible.
I'm very, very proud of that. And so Wrongful is pretty much my story as a parent when my child was wrongfully convicted of pretty much just being a kid and no real crime. And because there was a judge who felt he needed to be in the system to teach him a lesson, I was able to get him out of that situation with no attorney and pretty much very little guidance on my own. In walking that path, I realized that there are far more kids that get placed into these troubled teen industry camps and schools, and parents don't know how to get them out of it, and we don't talk about it. And these kids come out and they a lot of times commit suicide. They're far worse off than before going into these systems.
Yeah, it's very traumatic.
It's incredibly traumatic, and these kids are not okay when they get home. I was fortunate enough to get my kiddo home after 3 months when they wanted him to stay for almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that it was really hard, and as a parent, I had no idea at all that this was all intertwined together.
So at what point so your son was with his dad. He wasn't in the state.
So he was, he's being a very rebellious teenager. He was doing a lot of crap that I really was having a hard time dealing with him. And so his father, trying to be supportive, says, hey, bring him out here for a little bit. Let him get readjusted, because maybe a change of scenery would help. So I'm all for it. I have sole custody of Jake, but me and his dad have a relationship to where if I need him for something, he's right there. So I sent him out there because I pretty much gave him a choice. I'm like, you either can go out there with your daddy, or I don't know what I'm gonna do with you, but it's gonna be bad. So he chose to go out there with his father. And while he was out there, he was still being a rebellious kid. He ended up trying to go to a homecoming dance. And like most teenagers who are 16 years old, they had been drinking and smoking in a car. However, they got in a car accident. And when the police came, Jacob wasn't driving, by the way. People always ask me if he was driving. No, he was not driving. They got into a car accident, and illegally, the police did a sobriety test on this 16-year-old kid without his parents being there. So, of course, he gets arrested for minor consumption. Long story short, it was a ticket, then it was house arrest, and it was a lot that was happening which shouldn't have for minor consumption. The maximum sentence for minor consumption is a $500 fine, and that's federally.
Yeah, I literally can't think of one person who did not consume something as a minor.
Me, yeah.
Like,
whether it be cigarettes, whether it be marijuana, whether it be like alcohol, you always try it.
yeah, it's like what's happening in your teens. It's
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah. So I don't really fault him for doing, because he's a teenager. Teenagers do crap like that all the time. But legally, a field officer is not supposed to give a teenager a sobriety test without parent being there or parental consent.
And that's federally, right?
That is federally. That is in all 50 states. I know this because I had to read about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So he ends up getting arrested, gets these fines. Y'all start going through this process. At what point do you realize, like, no, this is not just like a normal, my teenager got caught doing something they weren't supposed to, they're having to like pay like the legal consequence? When did you realize, like, no, this is beyond that, this is further than that, and there's something bigger going on, and I need to get my son back to Texas?
Probably when the judge placed him under house arrest and he was 16 years old, getting ready to turn 17. Like, why is he under house arrest? He was just drinking and smoking weed in a car, and he wasn't driving. Like, so that didn't really like why is he on, like, I don't understand that part.
Yeah.
So the judge pretty much, when his dad went to court, because I wasn't there, and so I'm thinking it's just a ticket. Dad can go to court. Dad can call me and tell me what happened. And he said, oh, he placed him under house arrest. What the hell? Okay. And so, of course, we had to have another court date. And I was on the phone for that one because I'm the legal guardian. I'm the only custodial parent. So I was on the phone, and he said, you need to come get your son. I don't know why he's out here. Oh, well, I do. It wasn't for you to know. This is a family
I
issue.
do, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we notify the government when we
Yeah,
have
like,
our kids
kids-
go visit family.
So I was like, okay. So I was pretty much ordered to go pick up my child and bring him back to Texas. Fine. I did that. And in doing that, I decided to fly back. So his dad lives in a really small town called Fallon. It's an hour outside of Reno. So I flew out there. I actually flew out there on his birthday. And when I got there, I was like, okay, so this is kind of a fucked up situation we're in. I know I can't like take you anywhere for your birthday, but what do you want mom to cook you? So we're in his dad's house because my kid can't leave.
Right.
And so, I cook him what he asked me to cook, and then we fly to Las Vegas. The reason why I flew to Las Vegas is I have a sister that lives in Vegas I hadn't seen in about 5 years, and my sister has a brain tumor. And so I was like, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll go get him. I'll come and I'll visit my sister, and then we'll come back to Texas. Plus, I figured it would be like a slight reprieve for us to kind of like decompress
Yeah.
what just happened. Well, Jacob had other plans.
As rebellious teenagers do.
He did not want to come back to Texas, and I have no idea why. Actually, that's not true. I actually know why now, because teenagers don't want to follow parents' rules. And my teenager wanted to live a totally different life than what I had set up for him. Okay, cool. So he ran away. He left my sister's house in the middle of the night.
While on his house arrest.
Yeah. Well, no, he was no longer on house arrest once they released him to me.
Oh, okay.
And me and my sister are both just fucking baffled. And so, of course, there's the whole call dad, ask dad if he's heard anything. Dad hears he's coming back to Nevada. Cool. My first instinct is to call the police because he's supposed to be in my custody. I didn't realize the police was not really going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it took 3 months to find a 6-foot mulatto Afro-wearing kid in a town that's only 7,000 people.
Wow.
Uh-huh. He's very distinctive. So once they picked him up, the judge pretty much held him for 45 days in a detention center. And went to court, and the judge said, he is a child in need of supervision, so I am going to sentence him to a boot camp. Well, to like a boot camp school. I'm on the phone during this whole court proceeding. I don't get a choice. I don't get a say. I don't get anything. This is what the judge has ordered. And so they send me all the paperwork to let him go to this boot camp school. And I read it. I read contracts and negotiate things for a living.
Yeah.
I'm pretty savvy when it comes to what legal things say. And so I just got my little red pen and I was like, do not consent, do not consent, do not consent, do not consent, do not consent. And I sent that shit back to him. Mm-hmm. Which you have the right to do as a parent because you are still the legal guardian of your child. Yeah. He wasn't reprimanded into the system. He was held. He was detained. And so the judge pretty much felt like that was a fuck you to him because it was. I know it absolutely was. It was a fuck you to him. I'm a parent. I have rights. I have a lot of them. So I wasn't going to do that. So in me doing that, he just kept holding him. And in him holding him, he didn't send him to school, which by federal law, you have to go to school. If he was in my custody and I didn't let him go to school, they would come pick me up. Mm-hmm. So he didn't go to school while he was being detained. And then we went back in front of the judge. The judge was pissed. Like, he was real pissed. And so instead of trying to send him into one of those schools, he reprimanded him to a correctional facility for juveniles.
For a minor consumption.
Uh-huh.
That the worst thing is supposed to be
is a $500 fine.
Well, let me ask, did they put the him running away on top of that?
You can't. That's a civil matter.
Gotcha.
A runaway is a civil matter.
Okay.
The only thing that legally they can do for a runaway is release them back into their parents' custody. The judge has no say for a runaway. My sister was a runaway in the 80s. So legally, the court has no bearing on a runaway. You have to release the runaway back to their parent. Even if the parent is abusive, that's what the law says. You have to release this child back to their parent. And the judge felt he needed to be under stricter control.
In the process of all of this, do you know what is going on with the other kids that were in the car?
I do. So in the car of 5 kids, there were only 2 children of color. Even the driver was Caucasian, and she walked away and didn't get in trouble. But the 2 children of color were arrested.
Yeah.
So, I never want to just blatantly say someone is racist. People that know me and like know me in real life know that my entire universe is a cornucopia of everybody.
Well, you built a whole career around that. Like, I think we're all very clear that you are just like a lover of people.
I am, and so I never want to assume anyone is that way. And granted, I've come across people that are racist before. Whatever. I didn't know how bad our system was
Until
until this happened.
Yeah.
Like like you hear and and you understand. Like growing up, I was taught immensely about the things that people and the authorities can do to people of color. You know, my parents were born in the 40s, and so it wasn't like a huge secret to me. But I always felt there's a greater good in everybody. And our legal system is supposed to help. And I really did think we had progressed enough to where surely it can't be that bad. I learned the hard way. I did. I learned the hard way. And it was an awful lesson to learn that way, especially with your kid.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the honest to God truth, is that you, in your head, and I'm saying this from a place obviously of privilege, obviously. But you think in your head, like, oh, we have progressed, we've made progress. Like, yes, there's still room to be made, but like hoping that what it was, you know, when I was little to what it is now, you hope that there's been like a lot of progress and things are so much better.
And I did.
But the truth is that then you hear all these stories or you see all of these things, and it's not to say that it's all like that, but it just happens too often to not note that it is still happening. We've not made as much progress as everyone wants to celebrate and claim.
Right.
And we need to be realistic in how much change still needs to occur, not just on a person-to-person level, like in society, but within our legislation, within our like policing systems, within our, you know, government as a whole. It's so much more than just person to person. You hear these stories where it's like, there was someone else driving a car who was a minor, who was drinking, who was smoking, who walked away from that and crawled in their bed that night, while 2 other children who did less than that is sitting in
a
jail cell.
Oh, and the bad part was Jacob was thrown from the car. That's the part I don't talk about. Because he was in the back seat. He had passed out. And my child was thrown from the car. Yeah. And instead of him getting to be released to his dad, they booked my child.
After medical attention, I'm assuming?
I don't really think he had any medical attention.
No, that probably...
Yeah.
When we start talking about the troubled teen industry, okay, because it's not just the program or WASP or whatever, you know.
No, it's our juvenile correctional facility too. It's together. It's like all together.
There's pieces or people within the government that is tied to the troubled teen industry.
Right.
So you're sitting here saying like, okay, my kid is being thrown from a car, getting put into this, and yeah, people's thought is, hopefully he had medical attention. No.
No.
Because in their head, they're saying like, no, I'm doing what's right. I'm just detaining this kid. Like, he's
Mhm.
a bad kid and I have to detain him. The kid is passed out in the backseat of a car, sir. What exactly is he going to do? Like, that's crazy. But they throw him out, detain him, book him to jail, put him on house arrest. You come get him. They end up, he runs away. Okay. Great job, Jacob.
I know.
Good job, bruh.
Good on you.
Thinking
Yeah.
that one through. Thought it through.
Yeah. But real poor timing, sir.
It's like me smiling, waiting to make things worse.
Yeah.
Like, literally any other time would have been cool.
Right.
But no, does
No.
it then, which, like, classic rebellious teenager. Cool. Y'all end up back in this process. Put him on this is when they sentence him to the 2 years at the correctional facility.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you getting visitations? Are
I'm
you
in
getting to talk
Texas.
to him? Are you getting to, like, what does that look like?
So prior to him going to the correctional facility, I became an unlicensed attorney because in that 45 days that he was detained, all I did was talk to friends, reach out to other attorneys for advice, which I have friends that are attorneys, trying to figure out what the next process was. Because when I was on the call with the judge and he was like, I sentenced him to a boot camp. Why is he sitting in my courtroom? And his public defender was like, because his mother refused to send him. Like, literally, his mama said no. And that's the thing most parents don't realize. You have the right to decline this, even though a judge orders it.
Okay, but also not all parents will decline it.
And know that they can.
Yes, and then you also have parents that are just like, I don't know what else to do with them.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask about that.
So that's usually the first mindset is, I don't know what else to do with them. However, if we as a parent are diligent, most of the time, these kids need therapy or they need some other cognitive behavioral school. They don't need to be in this system that's been created for them. And often, because parents are just like, well, the judge ordered it, I don't have any other choice, because they don't know that you do have a choice.
Well, let me ask, with the situation as bad as it is, it's a series of questions. So
That's
bear
fine.
with
That's
me.
fine.
So one, why was he not his case not transferred to Texas, being that that's where he
That's a
is
good
legally held?
question, because the judge refused to do so.
Why would he have jurisdiction to hold
A kid in
Texas
Texas?
resident?
That comes a little bit later when I speak to the administrator of juvenile justice.
I remember that part. Okay. Okay. And so I've had this conversation with my wife, with a couple of friends, and my mom, and I've watched these situations. None of them got as bad as Jacob's did, but I've seen mothers, including myself as a step parent, tear myself apart. Just trying to get through.
Yep.
And that seems hopeless, right? Until they're old enough to drive, and then you're still scared because now they're driving. My previous family, we did lots of therapy. Single, family, couple, all the therapies. I am therapized.
Therapized.
I am therapized, and
Totally
then
stealing
and then you have
You need stickers.
yeah, therapized, and then you have the illegal option of the I'm just gonna beat the hell out of them. Like I'm gonna fight my kid. I'm going to. They're talking to me like they're 23, so I'm gonna punch them like they're 23. So I think the question that came up in all the conversations that I was in was, what all the alternatives? Because, like you said earlier, you felt that the judge reacted more off of, I'm gonna show you fat meat is greasy. And me being a military person and everything, I kind of identify with that, but I don't know if I wouldn't have gone that route, So what are the alternatives?
So, in me walking this journey, and I'm a military brat as well. My dad went to Vietnam 2 times and did 22 years of service. Jacob's dad is also a disabled vet. So,
Hoorah.
yeah, thank you. So he, he had lots of structure, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm off the hinge at times, and there was times I was like, I'm gonna beat you like a grown ass dude. I don't care if I gave birth to you or not. I'm about to fuck you up in here. And you don't want to. I'm serious, but you don't want to do that.
It's like I really want to.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that to your child,
Right?
because I know where Brandy can go, and it is not pretty. So, you have to have some restraint. But in my journey as a teenager, and I was very traumatic teenage years. Like, I didn't have normal like teenage years. So when I had my kids, it was, I understand you feel some kind of way about yourself, and I can't really control you. What I can do is try to guide you through this. And then once you turn 18, if you want to go out there and fuck some shit up on your own, then that's fine. But my goal was, I got to get you legal, because if I keep you out of prison, if I keep you safe, if I keep you like medically okay, I have done my job as a parent. What you do on your own, you go out there and you like rob a liquor store or something, hey bro, that's on you. But that's how I felt. Like, once I get you to legally where I'm supposed to get you, then we're cool. And then you can get the fuck away from me. I ain't got to look at you, and you ain't got to look at me. Okay. And that's literally how I felt. Because remind you, I have an older child. He's 4 years older than Jacob. And I was going through some stuff with him, and we were in therapy. I've been in therapy since I was 17. I'm 47.
I'm sorry, what was that?
27.
27.
Yeah.
You look it.
I know, every bit of it. So, I've been therapized too.
They're past.
And I got I actually have a friends group where I have therapy on speed dial.
Preach.
Yes. She needs it.
So that was my whole thing. It was, the state and the government do not get to dictate what I do with my child up until this point, which is what the law says. Like, it is our job to do. We get arrested if we don't feed them. We get arrested.
Right.
If we don't send them to school, we get arrested.
Right.
If they do, like, if they shoplift or do something bad, like even these kids that shoot up schools and stuff, guess who they're prosecuting now? The parent. So they're an extension of us. So my whole thing was, I just got to get you to from point A to point B. And then if you want to go out there and fuck up, if you want to run away from yourself, cool.
Well, it's not easy because, like, I have a son. He's going into those teenage years. He's getting mouthy. He's getting a little rebellious. We're in that.
Yeah, you just want to bib him in the face. I'm not even.
Oh no, last night. Literally, I'm sitting here trying to text y'all to get everything planned and situated for today, and I'm laying on the love seat, and I hear Tong tell Ryder, like, hey, it's time to, like, start getting wrapped up, get ready for bed, and you hear Ryder go, yo, chill.
Oh, throat chop. Just instant throat chop.
What you say? Bam.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
And my husband's very low-key. If you know him, he's very chill. He's very quiet. It takes a lot to get something from him. And I just immediately see him, like, whip around, and he walks back in there and goes, get off everything right now. And I was like,
see? They will. Your children.
It's hard. You can't control them. They're going to do what they want.
They bring out a level of gangster in you you did not know existed.
They do. And it's all just about trying to take each situation. This is how I try to view it. Each situation that we end up in, it's just, what can I do as his parent to teach him what he needs to know in this situation so
Yeah.
he doesn't have to keep learning it and move along. Like, the situations are going to come. Like, that's
Absolutely,
life,
yeah.
you know? Like, there's no point. I don't think there's ever a point in my life that I'm not like, I have something going on. Like, there's always something happening. So to me, it's just helping your kid learn to take those each time they come, and just what lesson can they learn out of that to
And
move on from
I
it.
think with me, because my child is biracial, so there's a very fine line we still have to balance between.
Yep.
Because he's not necessarily brown until like this time of year.
He's peach.
And in peach. Like, when he was born, I was like, that's the wrong color. You need to put that back in me. It didn't cook long enough. So, you know, there's a lot of extra things you have to teach your child coming from a biracial parents and stuff. And even his dad is biracial. And so it's not like, you know, we are trying to like teach all the races that are within you, and teach you people are not going to look at you one way or another. And so you kind of have to find your tribe in life. And I thought I was really good at that, because I got the Rainbow Coalition. Like, it when you look at my friends, it's like it's everybody. It is. It's literally everybody. I am non-discriminatory. And so that's what I instilled in my children. It was like, look at the person. Don't look at anything else. If that is a person you vibe with, if those are your people, none of the other things matter. And it doesn't matter what the rest of society says or thinks either. And you know, so that was my teaching him. His dad, I don't think, said too much about it. His dad was pretty much wanting him to know, hey, like, you're part Portuguese and you're part white too. Oh yeah, and by the way, you're like, your mama got a whole half of the family that's white. So, you know, this is what you're working with. And it was fine. But I don't think it kind of dawned on him that people see you a certain way until he was in this really small town.
Yes, and yes, I can attest to that, because where I lived at in Tennessee, Cookeville, Tennessee, it's an hour from Nashville, and it's a micropolitan area. It's there because of the college.
Yeah.
And again, my former family, the kids were biracial as well. And they mostly grew up in Cookeville. So when I come bopping along, you know, one was particularly darker than the other two. So, you know, he had this gorgeous smile, and he was very respectful. And he could say the most wrong answer. The answer's not even on the sheet, okay? And he'd be like, that's right.
Oh no.
So cute.
Yeah, and I got upset
Yeah,
with
you
that,
don't placate
because
to that.
yeah, it's like, look, you are a gorgeous little human, but first of all, your teacher has 125 students, and she does not have time to even understand why you think 2 + 2 is 6. You know.
Oh, not 6.
I mean,
Not just.
I mean, he's smart, but you know, it was just that common sense thing that sometimes
it ain't
really
common.
lacked.
It ain't.
It was just like,
It's not as common.
it's
as
a whole
people say,
nother
though.
story.
Yeah.
You know, but I fought with him on a regular basis about understanding that you feel like you are one of them, one of the country folk, one of the city folk. You are not.
Yeah, you walk out that
You
that
know.
where you walk out your bubble. And that was the thing, because my child was raised in the city where there's everybody. And he was even born on a military post. So unless you got some rank, you the same color as me.
Right.
That's just how it is. And so that's how he was raised. And so once you leave like this giant metropolitan city, and you in a town with it's just mostly people that look like you, but is not necessarily like you.
Yeah. I grew up in a town of 3,000, so I get it.
Yeah. There's literally 7,000 people in Fallon. And this was a child who grew up in the suburbs of Dallas Fort Worth.
Mm.
Like literally
Let's
went
see.
to an academy school.
So he's surrounded with the good old boy system.
Uh-huh. And he didn't understand that, and I never had to I'm a Californian. I moved to Arlington in 1987, and I've watched it grow. And then I moved like to Fort Worth, which is the city. So of course I have an understanding of from small to large. I started large, and then I was like, oh, what the hell is this? Uh, I did, because in 87, Arlington was literally like 9 streets.
Yeah.
There was nothing there. When we moved here, there was a Winn-Dixie that was down the street from our house. And I said, what the fuck is a Winn? I'm 10. What is a Winn-Dixie?
You might have lived close to me.
And I was like, Mama, where? I'm like, where is Ralph's? Like,
Right.
my little Sadiddy ass, this is not Ralph's. This is Winn-Dixie. I'm not a fan of this. So, that's who raised my kids. It was like, we do it big. And so he goes to this really small, and even when I went there to pick him up, I was so disgusted. I'm not gonna lie, I was disgusted. I'm like, dirt roads, why is this road not paved?
Oh my gosh, my car's gonna get dirty.
Yeah. And so I was there for like 3 days, and his dad was like, oh, so I bought Jacob a truck. You can drive the truck around. Truck? Sir, I drive a BMW. We don't drive trucks on dirt roads. Clutch the pearls.
And I'm sitting here like, I grew up like riding 4-wheelers on a certain path over and over again to
Girl.
create my own road.
No, girl, like dead.
See, in Nashville and Cookeville, I mean, yes, there are BMWs, Range Rovers, all of that. But in Cookeville, if you have a F-150 lifted and all of that is a sign of money,
I
hunty.
I live in
It's
Texas.
old
I
money.
get it. I do. But I wasn't in no lifted F-150. I wasn't no.
So you had like the Twilight truck, the one that Bella's dad gave her.
Yeah, I'm just like, you got me in a truck. Okay, I have nothing against trucks. I really don't.
These are awesome.
But have you looked at me? I don't sit in trucks.
I have a truck. It's cute though.
It's cute.
It's a Santa Cruz. I don't use it for truck things.
This goes in like vets and stuff. Like the truck.
You got the knees for vets?
I do have the knees.
She
for
drives a
vets.
Mini Coupe. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Well, that's not as low as a vet, though.
Girl, yes it is.
Basically, I parked next to it and I felt like I was going to back up right
Look,
on over it if I turned too far.
I've been in several vets, yes.
I just drive a mid-size.
Yes.
Well,
it's
I
fine.
just recall my last experience in a vet. I rolled out,
Oh, no.
you know.
There's a
reached
trick
up
of
to-
getting in and out of it.
Well, no one taught that to my
Yeah.
knees, so we are.
And
like my
I
trip.
do muscle cars because of course that's real money right there.
Mhm.
If you can afford one, I'm gonna sit in it. But I'm in like a town where no one looks like me,
Mhm.
literally.
Everyone's staring at you.
They
because
were.
nobody looks like you, and they're like, "What?"
And the people that are my color don't even look like me.
Absolutely right.
Cause I'm just like, ooh, what rock did you crawl out of?
And they're looking at your hair like,
Like, oh, okay, that's a real one right there, man. That is. I felt like I was in a National Geographic magazine. Like, bougie black woman, never seen before.
here we have the classic example of why you would not go to the city.
Yes. So that's what I felt like being there. Because, like I said, Jacob asked me to cook for him. So, okay, what grocery stores are here? Walmart. Cool, got it. Going to Walmart. And I have never seen what the meth epidemic looked like
Oh, it's awful.
until
Yeah, it's real bad.
I got
Especially
there.
in small towns.
Like, I know that part.
They cook it in their trunk.
I don't know nothing about no meth, but
I'm just saying, they told us that.
so while I'm in the store with my child, I'm just like, granted, I got a brand new Louis Vuitton bag. And like diamonds from head to, I'm like, I need to take this stuff off.
You're supposed to be coming in your sweaty pants.
I didn't
You
have
missed the
no
memo.
sweaty pants with me.
Well, what's actually really problematic with all of that is the things that we value, they don't really think much of.
Oh, okay, cool. So I
For
was straight.
the most part,
Yeah.
because if Billy Bob robs somebody and gets a Louis bag and takes it to a pawn shop, the first thing that it's not going to make sense. They're going to know that was
gotcha.
stolen.
See,
Because Billy Bob is a regular.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't know what to do with it for the most part.
Gotcha. Look, I'm
Well,
I'm
also-
a city girl. I don't know these things.
Also, too, just being raised in a town even smaller and way everything you're
Way
saying.
more redneck.
Very much
Yeah,
so. Very much so. Yeah, I don't think that they would even understand what items are worth something.
Exactly.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
worth taking.
Like when I come when I come home with things, there are definitely times that my dad's like, "What is that?"
Mhm.
Like they don't know.
Mhm.
And that's the
They don't give a
bad
shit
part
about that.
because
Right.
because his father, that was one of the things that I think he was attracted to when we were seeing each other, was because I wasn't like that. Like, I was like this elevated person of color. So from what I knew, like, his dad was like on that same caliber as me, because of course we met on the military post.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, this is cool. But then when I got out there where he lived, I'm like, you want to live here?
Oh, my dad loves it. My dad will never leave my hometown.
And that's the weird part now, because, fast forward, this is 8 years now. Fast forward 8 years, this is not the same person I dated.
Mhm.
He pretty much has a farm, and I'm like, oh, I could never.
I just thought of Green Acres. The
Yeah,
whole theme song
like-
just went through my head.
Like, he got cows and chickens and shit, and I'm like, oh, I could never.
Not even little.
No,
Okay.
look at me. This don't
I mean,
do,
I've seen this.
this
and
don't do
that.
work.
Uh,
This write books. This is
You
like,
can write books on a farm.
no, I'm not gonna be able to do
There's
that.
a lot of movies based on that.
I'm not gonna be able to do any of that.
Well,
Like, I have a farm at home in my backyard.
and don't.
Ain't no animals out there though.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little scared of the animals. Like, not scared. It's a sense of respect, because cows, they're really strong and they drool a lot. Ew.
Yeah.
Chickens, too erratic.
Now I would like to have some chickens, only because eggs cost $5 million, and you can get chickens that lay really pretty eggs, like the green ones and the okay, yeah. See, not mentally stable, not farm material.
I mean, that's a valid reason.
Yeah, see,
That's a valid reason.
so it was different for me going out there, and I couldn't understand why Jacob would run away and want to stay in that.
I mean, it could be a multitude of reasons. Someone he met, something he's interested in, whatever. Is the correctional facility that he ends up getting sentenced to, is that also
No.
out there? Where is that at?
Okay, so the judge was super pissed, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna show you, shakes fist at me, which I already knew what was gonna happen. So while Jacob is still being held, he said, Mom, why didn't you sign? Why didn't you let me go? And I said, because for one, he didn't want to go. And I said, here's the deal. If I give up my parental rights and I let this system have you, you will get lost there.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force the judge's hand. He's got one of two decisions to make. And I talked to some friends who were attorneys, and they were like, this is what's going to happen, because you didn't give the judge you didn't give him any wiggle room. So it was, he's either got to send him home, which legally he's supposed to do, or he's going to put him in the state. If he puts him in the state, now you have a leg to stand on, because he's not supposed to be there. I was like, okay, cool. So when I talked to Jacob, because I called him literally every day, because I'm still in Texas. I said, this is what's going to happen. He's either going to have to send you back home, because legally that's what he's supposed to do, is send you back home. But he's pissed right now, so he probably won't do that. So he's going to put you in a state facility. And Jake was like, he panicked because he was like, I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to do that. I said, it's okay, because while we have all this time, I had already called the governor of Texas, the state legislator of Texas, juvenile justice of Texas, Nevada, same thing. And they talked to me before Jacob was even sentenced to the correctional facility. And they were like, oh, shit, the judge shouldn't do this at all. Like, no, we don't even want this. And so once the judge ruled to send him to a state facility, the administrator of juvenile justice called me before the ruling was even done. And he was like, I got your letter from the governor's office. Because I said there is a Texas minor wrongfully detained in the state of Nevada. And I just laid out his whole case for them. And so they knew what was happening before he even got sent to the correctional facility. And the administrator of juvenile justice.
That's crazy to me, though, that they know that. But then,
because that's what the law says.
Ain't nobody stopping the judge.
Because
ain't nobody stepping in. Ain't nobody.
So this is what I told. Judges have a lot of power when it comes to their rulings, and you have to. There's like the whole appeals, like kind of what's going on now. So like the whole appeal system and stuff, you like have to fight a judge.
I understand that, but like you're sworn in, like
that don't make them good people.
I think that part is a part that is very hard for me personally, because my uncle is a judge and has been his whole career. He recently retired a year or so ago. But that's the shit that, like, just good.
And you have to... And we have to elect these judges too, which is why I was like such an advocate for like know who your judges are in your district. Vote for them. Don't just let them don't vote for the judges and just let them get appointed, because that is what we end up with.
Well, and that's the thing with my uncle. Like a lot of people in my hometown really don't listen. When you hear my maiden name back home, you love us or you hate us. There is no in between. But my uncle was always voted in as the judge because...
Nobody voted for him? He was just appointed?
No, he would get voted in. He got voted in. But the thing is that you might not necessarily love him. But if you're standing in front of him, he's going to look at your case and just take your case and do what is best in the situation. Like, he's not going to look at you and say, like... oh, I just don't like your family. I don't like this.
So he's doing his job.
He's doing his job. Like he's trying to be, he always took his job as judge in the most fair, like tried to disconnect it from like his personal and who he is outside of that. And like, I think that's why this story like just pisses me off.
Okay.
It's like, dude.
So the judge knows his dad. They play golf together.
And he didn't. What?
It has a lot to do with the melanin and lack of melanin.
I understand, but if you're friends with his dad, like, can't you...
Melanin and lack of melanin are a very bad deciding factor with some people.
I just literally can't, like...
Yeah. So that was a thing, which caused me and his dad to have some words. So
So did his dad like not try to?
There wasn't a lot Sean could do. That's the thing. Most people
Because
are
he
like,
had no legal.
yeah, he has no custody.
Oh, forget.
That's
you have
why I
some
wrote
custody
in
of
the
all your
book, like
kids, yeah.
he literally has no custody. So everybody tries to like throw Sean under the bus, which is hurtful to me because he is a disabled vet. Jacob was 3 months old when 9/11 happened. His dad was active duty Army.
Yeah.
He was deployed most of this kid's young life
Yeah.
until he got hurt. And when he got hurt, the first thing he did was come stay with me.
Yeah.
It wasn't so and there's things that I did that were wrong, but it didn't have any impact on him as a father. And so when people try to say, well, why is his dad like that?
Well, I'm not trying to throw shade at him. I'm just trying to think in my head, like if I'm a judge and I'm obviously already not a super law-abiding judge, I'm not a fair judge as it is, and my friend's like, yo, that's my kid, like, but we play golf together. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking, like
rubbing elbows.
Did his dad say this?
Did he
and
say
it's
anything?
Like the judge who is just like,
his
or the dad
really,
just literally,
he can't.
Like, you're just sitting there stuck.
Yeah, he couldn't, which is why every time we went to court, I had to be, like, he could sit in the courtroom.
But he had to be with you.
He couldn't say anything. I have sole custody.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, I'm there for support. But ultimately, his mother is the person that you have to defer to. His mother is the one with all the rights.
But did Sean not communicate with the judge at all during that process?
He told him, he's like, I don't have any custody over this kid. I was doing, like, Brandy and I have an agreement. I was doing this to try to help with my child. I don't think they talked about the case because it's a conflict of interest. And so I don't think they spoke. He knew that he was Sean's son. And I think that was the extent of it.
That was already a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tiny town.
Small towns, though,
there's not a lot you could do.
If it's as minor as that, they can't, because you have to think too, like, even when things were going on with me back home, that was always the thought in my mom's head, is like, I can't do anything here because even if we go to court and they say, well, it's a conflict of interest because that would be like my mom's brother-in-law or my uncle, we then get moved to a different judge who has also been serving with my uncle for how long. Right. So, like, not that my uncle would have like swayed anything, but just that was always the conversation of like, it could happen.
And that's
why the conflict of interest in small towns, if you tried to claim that, I mean, everyone would claim it. Yeah. Everyone knows everybody. Everyone has some connection down the line somewhere.
Right. Which is why I wanted him to go into the state, because now it's the state of Texas versus the state of Nevada.
Yeah. Versus me versus this small town judge. Yeah.
And the first thing the administrator of juvenile justice was, he said, most parents would have never done what you did. And he was like, and we don't even want him here because this is not something we can hold him for. Kids in the juvenile justice system have committed an actual crime.
Yeah, serious crimes. For you to end up at a state level, you've done crimes.
So when this was all said and done, were you able to sue the state for any type of damages?
So I pressed charges against his public defender because Jacob was a minor, and so he was supposed to work with me. He worked against me.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So I called the Bar Association and got him disbarred because he was also a real estate attorney. He was not a juvenile justice attorney.
Shut your mouth.
I'm not kidding.
Wow.
I pressed charges against the judge as well. I got the judge finally disbarred. I didn't sue the state only because the state did tell me, come get your kid. And we don't want him. we don't want to have a fucking thing to do with him
Yeah,
after
the
this.
state immediately was like, I did not want this, did
Yeah,
not decide
So they
this.
were not aware.
The state was not aware. It was all the judge in this small town county. So that, like, when things go in the state, and Jacob came home in 3 months because the state was like, fuck this. We can't overturn what the judge said, but we could fast track his ass right on out of our state. And that's what they did. And so as soon as he got there, he met with the administrator of juvenile justice, and he was like, yo, so your mama not one to play with. Like, because half these kids in here, their parents don't even know what to do or how to do it. Because I would go to work every day. When I got home, I would read juvenile justice law on the federal level. And I sent that to the governor's office.
But think about what you just said. Half the parents, which probably means 98% of the parents of the juveniles that are there, that are being detained, they don't know what to do. And that's really sad, because, and I mean, yeah, I know there's a good percentage of parents that have just reached their threshold. They don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
But then you have a child who's in a situation like yours, because God knows how many other times that's ever happened, So there's a kid somewhere sitting somewhere that's not supposed to be there, and their mom or dad have no idea what to do.
Well, and the even worse to me is the parents that
send them to the boot camps.
Well, just the parents that don't have the insight or knowledge base to realize what is really happening within these institutions and within these camps and within these situations. Like, I know growing up, my parents used to like say that all the time as like a normal like thing. My parents would be like, oh, you blah, 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 blah. Like, if I was getting in trouble a lot, like, it immediately was like, we'll send you to boot camp, we'll do da, da, da. Now, my parents, like, didn't do it in a way that, like, I knew I was not going to go to boot camp. But, like, I'm just saying in the sense of, if someone else's kid was, like, off the chain, like, getting in legal trouble all the time, my parents would be like, ooh, they're going to send them to boot camp, this, that, whatever. I don't think all the parents know in their heads that when they get there, they're being starved. They're being beaten. They're being like socially cut off and isolated and left in rooms by themselves for extended periods of time. Then you see on like the documentaries, think of like the program, watching that. And then you see like the dad where, this girl who gets sent into a WASP program as a teenager is telling her dad, like, I'm having a hard time. Like, it's hard for me to sit here and have this conversation with you because of like what happened. And he's sitting there saying, like, I didn't know.
They don't.
I didn't know.
Because when you say boot camp, I'm going to send my kid to boot camp. You remember the movie Child's Play?
Yeah.
Okay, when Andy was sent off to the military school, that's what people think. It's a military style boot camp.
But it's not.
We're going to train you. We're going to break you down, build you back up, release you.
Which my papa was in the Army as well. So my family was like, yeah, that is the right mindset of just like, we will break you down to build you back up in like the right way or like whatever. But it's like, that's not what's actually happening within the troubled teen industry. That's not what's actually happening to these kids.
So, and it's not happening in the juvenile justice system either, because it mimics one another.
Well, the juvenile institutions are just as tied into some of this as anything else.
They're built in together.
They're feeding each other.
They
feed
all
each
is
other.
one big cycle that just feeds it.
Even once Jacob went into the correctional facility, it was pretty much the same fucking thing, because the people who have the troubled teen industry, like these privatized schools and things, they also are the ones who are funding our correctional facility for our youth.
Yep.
So it's the same program. That's the thing nobody talks about, is the exact same fucking program.
Yeah, because they use that to... A lot of these private TTI programs are being they get government funding off of kids out of the state systems.
Yeah, but they don't have to deal with some of the
Yeah.
And then
regulations that
they
the
don't have the
state ran ones
regulations.
because
They
they're
don't get
privatized.
regulations.
Yeah.
They get the money. And the parents, they already lost this kid to the state. So what
They,
do I
they're
got to
none
deal
the
with?
wiser. And
It's
so
insane.
in learning that, because I really didn't know a lot of the stuff that I knew until I started, like, once Jake got home, there was a lot of trying to help Brandy and try to understand what it was we just went through. Because when you're in it, you really don't. You're just in it.
Right.
And so whatever was in me was like, do not send your child to this school. Don't do it. Do not do it under any circumstances.
What was the
Good
name of the
mother's
school?
intuition.
I don't remember the name of the school. So when I talked to the administrator of the school, he was like, "Oh yeah, we're on the top of a mountain and we're like 800 miles away from anything."
Nope, red flag.
It's like, is that Ivy?
Yeah, there's no
Ivy League.
He was like,
Ivy
even
Ridge.
if
Ivy Ridge.
he was like, even if he runs away, he'd be stuck in the wilderness. I was like, oh, so you want my child to die? And so here was my red flag though. So when they send the paperwork for me to send my baby to this hellhole, because I'm gonna say what it is, they want all of my insurance information, and I was like, fuck you, I live in the state of Texas. We got Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. Nope, not paying them bills.
Don't tread on me.
Yeah, in that part. Bring his ass back home where he lives. So then they want tuition, and they want you to pay like all this
Yeah, it's expensive.
obscene amount of money that you don't agree to. Like, I have a choice if I want to send him to a school of my choosing. And the judge is telling me this is where he's going. Man, fuck you. No, he ain't. Nope, do not. And I was like, do not consent on the whole thing.
There was a I don't know what state it was, but there was a case about a judge being tied up with the juvenile system, and he was getting kickbacks.
Utah. It's
Yeah,
Utah.
Utah's a big one for
Utah.
it.
So Utah is, and a lot of them do. It's just not a lot of them are brought up on charges. A lot of them will resign once it happens. They do get kickbacks from certain schools because the more kids that they can pump in the school, the more money the school makes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, and I whatever was in me was like, do not do this. And so I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not, because if I want to send him to a boot camp, I'm going to choose one, and I'm going to choose one that's through the United States military. I'm not going to choose one of these, privatized. I don't know what the fuck you doing.
Yeah.
So I was like,
The
no.
access would be a red flag for me.
Yeah.
Me having access to my child.
Plus, I was not in that state.
Right.
I'm
And that doesn't make
here.
any sense.
Yeah.
I'm in the great state of Texas. We got boot camps. We do. I was like, no, I ain't
Well,
going.
and it's crazy to me that the judge would not well, I mean, I guess it's not crazy to me because obviously the whole industry is fucked. But like, why would they not try to send him
Because
to somewhere
that was
that the
he was
parents
supposed
are,
to
but-
do, and he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I had pissed him off because I was the parent that challenged what the judge said because I knew he was wrong.
But he was still out of. He was still operating out of, I guess, would it be jurisdiction? Well, he was operating within his jurisdiction, but
within his jurisdiction with a Texas resident.
Like, I've seen people be transported across 4 states for for a misdemeanor.
So when I went exactly for a misdemeanor, this is a ticketable offense.
It just doesn't
You
make
don't even
sense.
have the legal right to hold him. Even if he's a runaway, still a ticketable offense. So I was like, okay, cool. You don't want to listen to me. So I'm going to get the states involved. I'm going to get the great state of Texas. The thing people don't realize about Texas, there's a lot of like fucked up stuff about our state.
Facts.
You don't mess with a Texas resident.
How so?
Because Texas is about protecting their own.
Oh.
Even when we had an active shooter here,
Mm-hmm.
our chief of police in Dallas was like, fuck it, send in a robot. I don't need nobody else's consent. Send in a robot. Blow him up. Texas is about protecting their own. And so when I wrote to the state of Texas and they were like, I'm sorry, what'd you say? A Texas resident? I
A
didn't,
minor
a minor
A
at that.
minor.
Texas
Yeah.
resident.
And they were like, can you prove it? Absolutely. He'd been in school in the state of Texas from kinder on up.
Mhm.
His doctor in the state of Texas. His birth record in the state of Texas. All of his shit in the state of Texas. I just told Texas, I was like, yo, they got one of your people.
And it's so messed up because I'm listening to you talk about how they protect it, and I'm thinking, yeah, unless they are.
Well, yeah, there's different
I know, but
scenarios.
those are the scenarios that I live,
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I
Yeah.
wonder if they would do that for me.
I mean, depending on the situation, they probably would.
Oh.
But
They do protect their veterans, which
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
If you are getting fucked with by a different state,
they
will.
gonna get you.
They can fuck you.
Yeah.
No one else can fuck
They're like,
you.
that's my LGBTP person to
They
mess
gon-
up.
Yeah,
They
how
gonna come-
dare you?
They're gonna come get you.
That's my rainbow person.
Yeah, they're gonna come get you. And so when the state of Texas called me first, and they were like, "We have your case. We've pulled your case. We're talking to the state of Nevada. You should hear something shortly." That same day is when the administrator of juvenile justice called me, and he was like, "Yo, look, so he gonna come into the state. We're gonna take him and get him home as soon as possible because these little county judges, they do a lot of shit that they want to do on their own, but the state don't want him here. Like, hands down, we don't want no smoke. So we just gonna send his ass back home." And I was like, okay. So the 3 months passed, and this, like, Jacob was placed on like this super accelerated program. They did not want him in that state, not a crime. They did not want him there because legally they couldn't hold, like, he's not supposed to be there.
Now,
So
by the
if
time he
that's-
got there, he was 18, right?
No,
He was still
he had
17?
just turned 17.
So they had him in the adult population?
And he was still in the minor because he's a juvenile till you turn 18.
Okay.
So he turned 17 that June when I was supposed to come out there to get him from house arrest. So 4 months pass. He's still 17. They were like, "You got to go. You can't be here. You got to get the hell up out of here."
Why did they have to? Because he spent 3 months there at that point, right?
Mhm.
So, like, why did that have to happen? If, like, they knew he wasn't supposed to be held on this once he got there, why?
Because you would have to get a governor's appeal and all that over a judge's order. So the fastest thing to do is just fast track them on out the state and get them out of the state versus trying to go in front of the governor, have this whole case. Like, it's more convoluted to do it one way versus the other. And he probably would have had to stay until he turned 18.
Okay. And then, so, like, if you do it that way where you fast track him through, like, that's him completing some
That
type
part-
of
yeah,
sentence, some
yeah.
type of situation. So, like, does this end up staying on there? Or is there some type of, like,
So what happened when he
happens?
got out is the state of Nevada gave him parole, which didn't make any sense to me. I said, how do you parole a tickable offense? And so
For Texas.
Yeah, for the state of Texas, because they put him on a plane and sent his ass back to Texas.
So you want him to do parole how?
So when he got to Texas, they put him on parole for a juvenile. And so that's why the book's entitled Wrongful. They don't have probation for minors. It's parole once you've been in the system. And because it's across...
But he shouldn't have even been in the system.
And because it's across different states, they had to parole him out. That was the only way to, like, get his ass back home. And so
but he's still on their books.
That part. And so when he's home, we met with the parole officer, and as soon as we sat down, he's like, "This is the most fucked up case I have ever seen with a kid in my life." And so we only met with him, I think, 2 months. And then also, after the 2 months was done, we had to go back to court to have his whole record expunged.
Making my eye jump.
Like, it literally, like, you're
it is
jumping through hoop after hoop
hoop
after hoop
for
after
something
hoop
that shouldn't have
for
been
something
done.
that should have never happened in the first place. And just knowing you as a person and knowing all the battles you take on in life, within your job, within your friendships, within whatever, like all the shit you're dealing with as it is. And then you have something like this where it's like just dumped in your lap. It shouldn't be happening. It's absolutely being handled the most crooked way possible. And it's like they're telling you, oh, we're going to fast track it. We want to get him home. We don't want to be a part of this. Da, da, da. But we're going to parole him. He
'Cause-
still has to complete this. You still got to come back to expunge this record. If I'm sorry, y'all fucked up, and the state should have been saying, here's your kid. We're going to wipe all this off. I am so sorry. Let's put
But
this
that's
shit
not
behind
That's
how
what I
our
would think would
government
happen.
works.
But that's what I'm saying.
Well,
it's so
I mean, I've
fucked.
seen, and no, I don't have the case name in my head, but I've seen it, and I watch, Law and Order. I've seen and read about cases where people have been accused of things. They were released from whatever facility,
The
and
Innocence Project.
that might have been one. But their slate was wiped clean. Now it might have taken a lot longer. Okay, I got you. Never mind. I shut up.
Well, yeah, his slate is wiped clean.
That's good.
Yeah,
I'm glad
but
that
we did.
But it was all the hoops you have to jump
We
through
had
to
to
get
go-
there.
And that's the bad part. Nobody knew I was going through this. I went to work every day. I was me every day. Like when you went to my book signing last year, and the guy that was working with me, he's like, nobody would have ever known. Like literally every day. There was times when my office would be closed because I'm on the phone with court, or I was on the phone with the governor's office. Nobody would have ever known. And that's the bad part, because I fight a lot of battles like that constantly, and I just keep going and I keep going.
So that brings me back to my first question. What are the alternatives?
Okay, so in going through this journey and still actually going through things with my son, we don't have a lot as parents. We really don't. The alternative, though, is to educate yourself enough to where if you choose to put your child in one of these programs, know where it comes from, know the origin of it, know if you're not allowed to speak to your child, or if they send them to another country, you have the right to bring them back home. And read what you sign before you put them in these facilities.
Right.
Because often you're signing over your parental rights. And so they can take your child for 3 and 4 years until they're legally an adult and just abuse them that entire time. And you're paying for them to abuse your child.
So what's the percentage that you guys are aware of children that reported abuse in those type of places?
It was 85 the last time I looked. And even within my book, I think I give the statistics within my book. And I also talk about some of the kids who have been murdered in these facilities.
Yeah, some kids die in these, especially the ones like that are off doing like the wilderness camps. Those like,
and there's within my book, there's stories and there's names. I think I think I chose 10, only 10, because I couldn't keep reading these cases.
Yeah, it's hard.
Where there was kids, whether they be in wilderness school or behavioral school or therapy school or just boot camp, where they're asphyxiated.
Yes.
They're starved, they're sexually abused, or they're beaten to death.
And the sad thing about half of what you just named, those who have survived through that consider that to be a rite of passage.
Yep. And they don't talk about it.
No.
And so they come out.
Well, they have to live with CPTSD for the rest of their lives.
And so even to this day, he was only there for 3 months. He still doesn't talk to me about it. And so in writing this book, I tried to ask if he could give me something, and he refused. He said, just tell it from your side, Mom.
It's probably something like that's just too hard to relive.
Yeah.
You know, like it's really sad, but you
Well,
and I had that conversation the other day. Like, I know for me, so I was abused, and then it took me a long time before I started therapy. I've only been in therapy now for a little over 6 years, but all this stuff happened to me 15 plus years ago, you know?
Yeah.
It took me a very long time. And even in my early sessions, I couldn't talk about it.
yeah.
When I sat down, my very first session, I sat down with her and she said, we're just going to start with like talking about like a safe place. And I started crying, and I cried the entire rest of the hour because I realized I didn't have one and I never really had. And so I think with Jacob, I can't imagine, you hear these stories and you see the documentaries, and these are only like a handful in comparison to the amount of kids who really go through this. What they're saying is awful. It's horrible. You can't imagine how much worse it really is, though, because what about all the people
They
who
don't
it's
talk.
so bad and they can't tell their story and they can't talk about it? So I think about that with Jacob, because it's like, you know, he just might not be able to have that conversation and really face it. It's something very hard to sit with at first.
So the one time, because I was allowed to FaceTime with him while he was there, and he got 2 hours every week when I could FaceTime him, and so his first week there, he said, "Mom, I don't belong here. There's kids in here that have killed their parents,"
Yeah.
and
He's like, I had a beer and a joint, bruh.
yeah,
Like,
and so like as a parent, it's you're heartbroken. You have
yeah.
no idea like what kind of people, what kind of guards are around your child. And so I was diligent in making sure my kid came back home. And I will say the state did not want him there. When they put him on a plane, I didn't even get a phone call. I had to call and say, "Where is my kid? He's supposed to come home today." Nobody called me. They did not want him there. They were like, "Your ass got to get gone."
Well, with him saying that, okay, he definitely was not in a place where his crime, fit
The
the
punishment.
punishment. Um, but if you had known more about the facility, known that they had a positive reputation, you didn't know much about any of the abuse or anything like that was possible, would you have felt more comfortable with everything?
I would, because I actually found a school here in the state of Texas. I found one that was 45 minutes away from my house. It was a ranch. They had visitation, open visitation.
Nice.
They did not charge your insurance because it was 45 minutes. Like, I still had custody. I was not signing my custody away. I found some place for him to go to where maybe he would get the therapy that he needed and get the environment he needed. And when I told the judge that, he declined,
Okay.
which he wasn't legally within his right to
Right.
decline because I'm the parent. I have a say.
Right.
So if you do your research and you like look at these schools, because a lot of them say, "Oh, well, there's Parents' Day on these certain times, or you can call at these certain times." I didn't want something like that. I want to have open access with my child so I can
I
know.
don't want to see the show you put on for
No,
me. I
I
want to
want
see
to
the
be
truth.
able to know what's happening with him.
Right.
And I found a school like that, and they give you like the number of other parents of kids that are already there, not kids that have left, not kids that are graduated, but parents whose kids are already there in the program. They were like, "This kid is here right now. Their enrollment date is this date. This is what their parents' number is. You can call them and talk to them about their experience." Not after the kid is gone. Can you call? I didn't want any of that. I'm very transparent, and so if you're dealing with me, especially if I'm going to give you some money or I'm giving you access to my life, hence my child, you're going to give me what I need. If not, it's not going to happen. So you do have alternatives. And in the book, I talk about some other kiddos who were wrongfully detained, mostly Khalif Broden. Khalif was 17, and they sent him to Rikers Island.
Yeah.
And so I work closely with Khalif Broden Foundation, and I did have a lot of conversations regarding this that happens to other kids. And if anybody like watches the news, which most people don't right now because there's so much going on, but last year Paris Hilton was able to get a law passed to try to like help aid in these schools and stuff because she's an advocate for it as well.
Yep. She does great work with
Yeah.
that.
And so, I'm not going to tell anybody to go out and buy my book. However, do some
I will
research.
go out and buy her book.
Go buy the book.
Go buy the book.
Do some research when it comes to your kids because you never know what kind of situation you'll be thrown in. You never know like what your kid is going to do that might be brought in front of a judge, and you'll have to make some really hard decisions.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, is there any advice? I mean, I know you've given a lot kind of throughout the conversation, but just if there's something that you could say to either the parents or even the kids themselves that are having to go through this now, or, they're a survivor of this, what would you?
Therapy works. Even if you can't talk to your parent or your significant other,
But find the right
find the right
therapist.
person to talk to somebody, because me just as a parent, I wasn't the one locked up, but I'm the parent having to go through all of this. I had to go through a lot of therapy.
Yeah, it's traumatic on both sides. And I think something that my therapist and I talk a lot about is that your body keeps the score. Your body
Yeah.
holds your trauma. And a lot of people
yes.
don't always talk about the physicality of trauma. We know the mental and the emotional, and we think about that a lot, but we don't necessarily always take into account what physical trauma your body holds as well from these situations.
Absolutely.
So,
And I also think it's really important to know that just because you feel you should be able to talk to your family doesn't mean that that's what is going to happen.
No.
You feel that you should be able to communicate openly with your mom. She may not be your person.
Nope.
And you have to pick and choose who you tell what story. And the sooner a person realizes that when they're going through something, the easier it is to start healing, because you're not reopening that wound over and over again, just trying to break through with the same person.
Yep.
yeah. Well, a lot of times it has to be someone else. It has to be
Yes.
that
Yeah.
third party. So find your people,
Yeah.
do the thing, but
And-
definitely.
and take care of yourself. Love yourself through it, because
Yeah.
it's not easy. Nothing is easy. But when you're going through something really hard, especially with dealing with your children, find a little bit of time to love yourself and realize it is not always your fault.
Yep. And just be kind in the world, because you don't know what everyone else is going through either.
Yep. Be nice.
Preach.
So that's our episode for today.
And as always,
Always, life be lifin' sometimes.